keynote speaker, Mr. Shazaib, Jaffer, co-founder of Dimo. Shazaib is a fifth-generation Tanzanian entrepreneur with business interests in a diverse range of sectors from hospitality, entertainment, real estate development, health, and technology. Shazaib has completed his BSc degree in technology, digital business, and entrepreneurship at Cass Business School in London. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here and very honored as well. So today my focus will be blockchain and its application in developing contexts. In specific, I'll be talking about blockchain in East Africa, which is where I'm from, and so as to not generalize all developing contexts under one umbrella. So to begin, I want to comment on the rate of innovation in the world we live in today. So to start, the most famous innovative metric is Moore's law, which states that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles every year, while the cost of computing is halved. In 1981, a gigabyte drive cost about $500,000, and an Intel processor running at 60 MHz cost $360. In 2018, a gigabyte cost less than 2 cents, and a 3 GHz processor costs roughly $3,000. So in constant dollars, the price of processing has dropped some 500-fold, and the price of a hard drive has dropped 250,000 times. Now, as a corollary to Moore's law, there is also Bell's law, which says that every decade, a 100-fold drop in the price of processing power engenders a new computer architecture. However, in the time we live in today, we can see that despite Bell's law, we have indeed outpaced it, because in the space of 3 decades, we've had a 500-fold drop in the price of processing. Even to quote Joe Biden in his most recent speech a few weeks ago, in the next 10 years, we will be seeing more change than the change we've seen in the past 50 years. And to put that into context in terms of blockchain, by 2025, 80% of all fintech should be blockchain-based. However, I find that today, most of our interaction with blockchain outside of Bitcoin and trading is kind of sparse. But insofar, about 2,112 blockchain patents have been filed in the US, and half of all blockchain patents filed are in fintech. I think also, before I dive into my product, Dimo, and what it does, it's important to also define blockchain for those newcomers who may not understand what is blockchain and how it works. So to put it in a nutshell, blockchain is governed by 5 principles. The first is distributed decentralized databases, which means that there are no gatekeepers. Databases are distributed and not centralized, and hence are not vulnerable to any attacks, and nor are there any authority nodes who can inhibit the ability to transact within this context. The second one is peer-to-peer transmissions, which results in the bypassing of authority nodes. The third one is computational logic, which requires proof of work, proof of solvency, which ultimately gives rise to the ability for smart contracts to function. The fourth is transparency with pseudonymity, the ability to transact without revealing your own identity, but at the same time, maintaining transparency. And the fifth, of course, is immutability. And to phrase it in a maxim, I would say the internet gave rise to the age of information or misinformation, whereas blockchain, on the other hand, etches its information in digital stone. If we were to also contextualize blockchain today in regards to how it looks in terms of the technology S-curve, I would say that we are still in the era of ferment and not in the era of incremental change. And the era of ferment is usually defined by a large variety of multiple projects, multiple different applications, and multiple different creativity and innovative ways to apply a technology. Moreover, the dichotomy between an era of ferment and the era of incremental change is marked by the emergence of a dominant design. And so clearly, with the amount of blockchain projects around the world that have been accelerating, the amount of patents that are filed, we are still in the era of ferment, where we're still trying to get it right and still trying to learn how to scale up blockchain initiatives and blockchain solutions in a way that is also not detrimental to the system. In regards to also Bitcoin, usually with Bitcoin, the higher the amount of transactions, the higher participation rates, the ecosystem of the blockchain is compromised because it becomes harder to host. However, today also, in terms of Bitcoin, can only handle a few transactions per second, whereas many other blockchain systems today can handle up to 5,000 to 6,000 or 7,000 transactions per second. Now, in regards to my product, Dimo. Dimo stands for Digital Money. It's a startup that I founded in 2018 with my older brother while I was in university. And mobile money in East Africa represents a very large industry of technology that has been quite silent, nascent, and I would say embryonic as well. As of now, 54% of all mobile money transactions in sub-Saharan Africa are focused in East Africa. So just to contextualize this, here's some general statistics. So the number of registered mobile money accounts in Uganda between 2009 and 2020 has been increasing at an exponential rate. As of 2020, there were 30,374,502 registered mobile money accounts. In regards to the amount of mobile money transactions per year in Uganda, as of 2020, it hit 2.5 billion, which is a serious increase from 2 million in 2009. Again, over here, we see that the growth rate of mobile money adoption is also exponential. In regards to the mobile money transaction value per year in Uganda, we can also see that it hit an all-time high in 2019 of 19 billion, whereas in 2020 it settled at 17 billion, which resulted in an average of about 1.3 billion US per month. Now, in regards to technological adoption, innovation, and as well as the presence of digital infrastructure that can host either financial industries or host supply chains and so on and so forth, mobile money presents a very unique happening that has occurred in East Africa. It was founded in 2007 by Safaricom in Kenya. However, within a space of 14 years, the rate of adoption has been astonishing and also phenomenal. However, despite this higher rate of adoption and despite this increasing amount of money that is present in this industry, there's been a severe lack of innovation and a severe lack of interoperability and adoption in regards to the people at the bottom of the pyramid. Indeed, in the past few years, the dynamic of the mobile money industry has been marred by high fees that is in an oligopolistic market dominated by large mobile network operators. And just in the past few months, transaction levies in Tanzania, in Kenya, and in Uganda have resulted in significant drops in mobile money adoption and mobile money usage. So to put that into context, the average mobile money user in Uganda is moving about $7 a month at a frequency of 7 times a month. The equivalent Ugandan shilling value is associated with a fee of 0.660 cents, and thus a 9% cost of users on their entire transaction value. This fee cost of 0.630 multiplied by 7 times a month means that the average mobile money user for MTN, which holds a 45% market share in mobile money in Uganda, is paying $4.41 in fees per month. Now, this is quite high when you take into consideration that 38% of the entire population of Uganda is living under $1 a day. Moreover, the ability for a Ugandan individual, a Ugandan person, to transact digitally results in benefits and increase in productivity that are so much higher in proportion to the fees that are being adopted. So my company, Dimo, is a blockchain-based mobile money solution. We're the first blockchain project in Africa to have ever received a patent from a central bank, which was awarded in 2019 from the Bank of Uganda. It was also presented at the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2020. So unlike current mobile money systems and regimes that are existing in Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania, we do not charge fees. So usually in Tanzania or Uganda or Kenya, if you were to transact with mobile money, there would be a fee associated with every single transaction. Hence, in economic terms, the marginal cost versus the marginal benefit must always be considered every time an individual decides to transact using mobile money. Unlike this, Dimo charges only $1 per month for unlimited transactions, and even for those individuals who cannot afford $1 a month, Dimo gives them 10 free transactions monthly. And then upon the 11th transaction, a subscription fee model kicks in, and it's only $1 per month. Moreover, we also leverage the use of blockchain in terms of its high security. I think about 14% of Ugandan individuals report that they don't like to use bank accounts and they don't like to use mobile money due to the safety issues associated with it and lack of trust. In 2018, in Tanzania, there was a $3 million hack of mobile money. In Uganda as well, the amount of banked individuals was 13% in 2009. In 2019, it was dropped down to 9%. So we're seeing that the adoption of conventional financial services has actually decreased over a decade span, whereas mobile money has indeed increased. But despite this increase, we're still marred and faced with high fees and also extortion from these large oligopolistic markets. In addition to this, government also involvement and regulation of mobile money has resulted in higher fees. If you also look at the amount of contribution that mobile money pays in Tanzania to tax revenue, it is bigger than that of cigarettes and alcohol combined. Our project also aims to give benefits that go beyond just the ability to provide infrastructure to transact digitally, but also provide tools that allow users to take advantage of this in terms of economic terms. So for example, in Tanzania or in Uganda or Kenya, if one were to use mobile money as a business, there is no demarcation between a business account for mobile money and a user account for mobile money. They're both one and the same. If a business at the end of the day wanted to tally up all their mobile money transactions and receipts, they'd have to individually scroll through all their transactions on text message. And then they'd have to then physically write down or then digitally convert it. Whereas with our product, we give it straight a business account, which allows for bank statements and financial statements to be emailed to the accounting sector. In this way, also, we allow for businesses to take advantage of data analytics to show what is the traffic of mobile money, what is the average spend per person. And we give the opportunity for businesses, and especially SMSEs, to take advantage of mobile money tools and not just mobile money infrastructure. Another factor that we've included within our project is the ability to peer-to-peer lending, which is tied into decentralized financing. Because of the blockchain system and the lack of authority nodes, we've created a system whereby users can transact with each other and even lend to each other without the need for this to be audited or approved by a third party or a central bank or a central figure. Okay. So I've spoken about my product and I've given you a small rundown of the mobile money industry in East Africa. But what is the wider implication of this? There are thousands of interesting projects every year being inputted and created, and there are many more interesting projects than my project. Mine's quite simple. It's just taking an existing industry and putting it on a better system so that we save cost. And as a result, we charge lower prices and increase financial inclusion. But what is the overarching implication of a business model that takes technology and that takes an existing incumbent industry and combines the two to create social impact, particularly through financial inclusion? Having studied economics at many institutions in my whole life, from Cambridge University to Harvard University to even Cass Business School in London, I've understood that every technological innovation, every industrial revolution, from the steam engine to the internet to steel and line factories to electricity, not only engenders a new architecture of technology, but also engenders a new architecture of economy. New technology creates opportunities for entrepreneurs to take advantage of decreasing costs, increasing returns to scale, to provide higher access to services. To quote Harvard biologist David Sinclair, he described the process of tool building from the time the first human picked up a stick as a treadmill. And this is a treadmill we can never get off. And the pace at which this treadmill increases yearly is so much faster than the previous year. Indeed, now even with Bell's law and Moore's law, we're going to surpass the exponential increase that is defined every year, especially with the advent of quantum computing. Indeed, people say that our processing speed will increase 100-fold per year. So to conclude, in terms of the dynamism between adoption and innovation yields the following conclusion, especially in the mobile money industry in East Africa. When adoption outpaces innovation, price increases. And when the marginal cost participation increases disproportionately relative to the marginal benefit of that innovation, disruption occurs. And this disruption is clearly shown through my project Dimo. I also want to take some time to focus on mobile money and its impact. It is often the case that technological innovations have been confined and exclusively enjoyed by upper class aristocratic classes and big business and big industry. However, mobile money in East Africa has taken a more unique approach to how it's helped people at the bottom of the pyramid. So to exemplify, Bidi settlement in Uganda is a refugee camp in northwestern Uganda. It has over 270,000 Sudanese refugees. In 2017, it was the largest refugee settlement in the world. But however, a digital money infrastructure in the refugee camp affords displaced people with the ability to manage their finances, to pay for necessities, to borrow money, and to also send money to other refugees living in other refugee camps. So in Bidi, 44% of refugees use mobile money, and 80% of the population live within 1 kilometer of a mobile money agent. Now, when I first read this many months ago, I was quite shocked that despite the clear link between mobile money and its effect on people at the bottom of the pyramid. And here we're talking about refugees. We're talking about people who are literally at the bottom of the bottom. They facilitate and occupy a space in economic terms that is so small that even their contribution to economy is negligible compared to the top 1%, compared to the bottom 90%. And I was hit with an interesting quote from Angela Arendt, the former senior vice president of Apple, who wrote that if you aren't building a social enterprise, I don't know what your business model will be in 5 years. So to further exemplify what kind of impact mobile money can have on households, globally, half of unbanked adults come from the poorest 40% of households within their economy, making it nearly impossible for them to show a financial history to access financial services. In Uganda, per capita consumption of rural households who use mobile money is 72% higher than rural households who do not use mobile money. In Kenya, households who use mobile money experience a 7% drop in the consumption of goods, services following a negative income shock, while those that use mobile money had no drop in consumption. Another example of how digital infrastructure has helped households is that in Uganda, coffee farmers who use mobile money receive 5% higher prices for the coffee than non-users, because they could reach buyers in higher value markets. So, to frame this into perspective, we now are confronted with an industry that, number one, has a lot of money in it. That, number two, represents a technological innovation that has created a whole ecosystem, a whole infrastructure that dominates Africa, digitally speaking. And number three, it is an innovation that has clear links with social impact, with increasing the welfare of the poorest of the poor. Now, this brings me to my conclusion and my 2 cents on what I believe the fourth industrial revolution will bring in our time. I've met many entrepreneurs who have reflected and said to me they wish they live in a time of, the dot-com bubble, because it would have been much easier to make money. Or they wish they live in a time of the 1950s and 1940s gold rush, because things back then were simpler. And things indeed today are much more complicated, much more intertwined, and much more commingled, especially in the globalized world we live in. And the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely showed us that. So fourth industrial revolution technology in itself, such as blockchain, 3D printing, gene editing, artificial intelligence, lends itself to efficiency gains and operating cost reductions. For example, with blockchain, the only reason my company is able to charge such low prices is because server costs are so much lower. And this results in the ability for price competition to ensue. Price competition, and just by default, because of the lower price, results in higher access. Higher access does not only mean higher access for the middle class or the upper class, but also for the lower class, as this trickle down. And this results in societal benefit and value. So what does this mean in terms of today? In terms of the entrepreneurs of today, of Generation Z, of Generation X? Even in terms of the listeners who are listening into this presentation, who may also want to be entrepreneurs themselves in the future, or may be here to just learn more. And it is my personal belief that we are living in an economic time whereby fourth industrial revolution technology lends itself to social impact due to the default phenomena of lower prices and higher access and also higher quality. And this takes me to the idea of the hybrid ideal. It's idealistic capitalism meets Schumpeterian economics. And to quote Schumpeter, Joseph Schumpeter, 1900s economist, who wrote that a process of industrial mutation, if I may use that biological term, that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. This process of creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism. This is taken from a 6-page chapter in his book Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy in 1942. Now, in regards to the gale of creative destruction and its relationship to capitalism, I feel that in the past 100, 200 years, this creative destruction has indeed resulted in the real destruction of our world. The environmental degradation by oil and gas and mining companies and technological companies. The advent of high rates of pornography, prostitution, and sex trafficking. The creation of child labor and the engendering of labor rights that are being essentially distorted all over the world. And it was my realization many years ago when I was studying in university that one cannot participate in the capitalistic system that we have without compromising their morality. Every time you buy a pair of Nike shoes, you know you may be contributing to child labor in Myanmar. Every time you buy an Apple product, you're contributing to labor rights distortions in China. Every time you want to go to McDonald's and buy a soda, you're contributing to littering. And we live in a time where the focus of sustainability and impact has been unfairly put on the consumer. We cannot expect consumers to choose to recycle. We cannot expect consumers to choose to use non-reusable plastics when the decision to do this comes at a higher cost. In the West, consumers have the luxury of choosing to live morally in a capitalistic structure, but in developing contexts, particularly in East Africa, sustainable options often come at a higher cost. And for individuals living under $1 a day, even individuals earning $100 a month in salary, this cost is a burden that cannot be borne. So, what does this mean today in terms of fourth industrial technological revolutions and in terms of social impact it creates? We cannot create a sustainable structure of economy if the economy is not aligned with social impact. If the profit incentive of the entrepreneur is aligned with societal impact, an idealistic capitalistic structure forms. And the social entrepreneur's task is to provide innovative solutions that provide disproportionately higher value at a disproportionately lower cost. So Google is a perfect example of this. Everything on Google is free. Google Maps, Google Ads, Google Business, Google Docs, Google Email, Google Search. And given that it has come at a disproportionately lower cost, indeed the cost of using Google is free, and the disproportionately higher value, adoption has increased immensely. However, this adoption has not come at the benefit of social impact. Indeed, actually, it has come at the creation of rights of privacy and rights of GDPR. And it is my view that moving forward, especially in developing countries, especially in East Africa, what I have observed is that the introduction of new technology lends itself to lower costs. And not only does it lend itself to lower costs, it also lends itself to higher quality. And as a result, it lends itself to higher impact. So that is my 2 cents on this, and thank you. I would like to end this presentation with just the fact that 40% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa lives under $1.90 a day, and 1 billion people yearly are actually becoming poorer every year, while the remaining 6 billion are becoming richer. And I do believe it is the entrepreneur's task in the time we live that instead of taking $100 from 1,000 people, we should look to take $1 from 1 million people. And at the same time, in the taking of this $1, provide higher value to these people so that we can create an economic structure which creates social impact and benefit for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.